Hello, friends. Today I'd like to do a video, a rebuttal video on the case, Cold Case Christianity's page is Jesus a Pacifist. This page is put out by Jay Warner and Jimmy Wallace. And they also have a YouTube video on this topic. I suggest you to watch that video or read this article before watching this video. The article is not very long, even though the seriousness of the topic, it's not a very long article. Spoiler, he doesn't believe Jesus was a pacifist. He says it in the thumbnail, point blank, Jesus was not a pacifist. And it seems like other Christians on the other side of this issue from me believe it's not even worth serious consideration. Obviously, Jesus wasn't a pacifist. And I would strongly disagree with him there. I guess I should define pacifism here, because pacifism really might not be the best word to use. Other people use the word creative nonviolence or non-resistance to evil by force was what Tolstoy used. But it's definitely not passive. We think of Jesus storming the temple. We think of Jesus confronting the Sadducees and the Pharisees. We think of Paul, confronting the Jewish religious leaders of the day. And so pacifism ain't a right word. I would say creative nonviolence. My testimony is I want to become Catholic, but most of my life I was a Quaker, in which pacifism is a core doctrine of Quakerism. So in his article here, he says some of the thesis of his article. Jesus was not contradicting the Old Testament laws in the Sermon on the Mount. The no eye for an eye was means personal retaliation, which he doesn't really go into depth. So he's saying no personal self-defense, which was what Augustine said. Jesus believed some causes call for aggressive action. Jesus was quick to act aggressively to defend what he believed was right. Jesus called for the use of the sword. Jesus never condemned the life, calling, or duty of those who exercise deadly force. Jesus agreed with his Father's perspective on wars. Jesus himself was a warrior. Jesus and the Father are one. And some of these are his theological arguments are just ridiculous. I mean, it shows a lack of understanding of basic theology, I believe, and I don't think I show that. But like I said, in this whole article, he doesn't mention the church fathers, which maybe because he's an evangelical, he doesn't take them as authorities. But we can look at the church fathers to see what did the first generations of Christians believe. Because I think everyone would agree that the first 3 centuries of Christianity, they were all pacifists. They all took it for granted that they were to be pacifists. And many of them died because they refused to serve in the military. So right here we have a list of some of the early church fathers. And this page is from Wikipedia, Christian Pacifism. Justin Martyr. We who formerly used to murder one another do not only now refrain from making war upon our enemies, but also that we may not lie or deceive our examiners, willingly die confessing Christ. We who were filled with war and mutual slaughter and even wickedness have each through the whole earth changed our warlike weapons, our swords into plowshares, and our spears into implements of tillage, and we cultivate piety. So obviously we see here that Justin Martyr doesn't agree with Cold Case Christianity's interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount, which he said is just against personal retaliation and not criminal or military force. Tatian writes, I am not anxious to be rich. I decline military service. Die to the world, repudiating the madness that is in it. Aristides writes, through the love towards their oppressors, they persuade them to become Christians. Hippolytus of Rome went so far as to deny a soldier's baptism. A soldier of the civil authority must be taught not to kill men and refuse to do so when commanded and refuse to take an oath. If he is unwilling to comply, he must reject baptism. Tertullian. There is no argument between the divine and the human sacrament, the standard of Christ and the standard of the devil, the camp of light and the camp of darkness. One soul cannot be due to two masters, God and Caesar. And we go on and on, all these different church fathers. Evil ought not to be requited with evil. That it's better to suffer wrong than inflict it. That we should rather shed our own blood than stain our hands and our conscience with the blood of another. Archelaus, many soldiers were added to the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ and threw off the belt of military service. Lactantius, for when God forbids us to kill, he not only prohibits us from open violence, which is not even allowed by public laws, but he warns against the commission of those things which are esteemed lawful among men. Thus it will be neither lawful for a just man to engage in warfare. So I'm going to go more into these church fathers in my Bible study, Sheep Among Wolves. But just an overview. Trust me, the early church, the majority were pacifists. The majority understood Jesus' teaching on the Sermon on the Mount as being binding on us. And cold case Christianity doesn't acknowledge this.